Hello, my name is Kaceli. During this tutorial, I will cover concepts related to databases and how to design and use a basic database. We will start with the very basics and then we'll get moving into working with data in a database. The best way to learn is to follow the video hands-on on your computer. First, some general concepts related to databases and how databases work. A database is a collection of data that is stored in a computer system. The easiest way to understand a database is to think of it as a collection of lists. For example, if you're running a business, you have a list of customers, a list of orders from those customers, a list of items that you are selling to your customers or services that you're providing to your customers. Components are tables, queries, forms, and reports. Tables, that's where the data is stored. The queries retrieve specific data from the tables and displays only the data that you specify. Then the form is used to enter, to edit or delete existing records. The reports summarize records from a table or a query in an easy-to-read format. Here's a really simple database. In this case, we have the customer table, we have the contract table, and then we have invoices. The customer table, of course, it would have the list of customers. I have another entry here, and this is a query, the processing of data based on a criteria. And this is an example of a form. The form is basically, instead of you going to the customer table, scrolling all the way to the bottom and entering the data manually, you'd go in a form similar or nicer than this and enter the records right here. And reports are designed so that they can be printed out. Once you're in Microsoft Access, on the left-hand side, you'll have the recent databases you have been working with. And then on the right-hand side, you have the option to create a blank database. And then further down here, we have different templates. So once we open Microsoft Access, we click here on the blank database, give it a name, and take note where you're saving this database. On the very top, we have the File tab here. And then we have these different tabs. So Home, the most commonly used functions, very similar to other applications. The Create tab to create different components related to databases. Then we have the External Data tab to get data from other systems and import it and link it into a database here in Microsoft Access. Database where we can define the relationships. Or databases, as I mentioned earlier, they are designed using tables. This is our first table that we are working with. Typically, these are referred to as the fields. So you'd have the ID field, the first name field, and then last name field, and so on. So the columns where you'll hear the term field. Then you'll also hear the term record. The record is, think of it as the row here. This would be the field name. So we could change that to say customer ID. This is an auto number. That means that when it goes to the next customer, it'll go from customer 1 to number 2, number 3, number 4 automatically. The data type for each one of those fields typically has to be specified. So the next field here, we are going to make it text, and this will be first name. Then the next one, short text here, and then we're going to call this last name. The street address, and this would be text as well. City, and then the next state, and then the next one zip. Now the zip code, we want that probably as a number field. And then the next one could be, for example, a date field when they signed up to be your customer and such. Or you could have an attachment for this customer. Or you could be able to post a hyperlink as well. This step, it's referred to as the designing this table. It's very important to think through all the fields that you want in a table when you're designing your database. Once we are done with designing our first table, click on Close it. And now give it a name to save the design for this table. To open this up, you simply double click on it. To change the design, you could simply click here to add additional fields or using the design view. Here under the Home tab, we have View. There's the datasheet view. What we currently are utilizing And then you also have the design view. Click here on design view. Here you can modify the structure of this table. On the left hand side you have the field name, which was the column in that table that we saw earlier. So we could change the names here, or we could change the data type as well. Now from here, from the design view, here you can change the data type. You can change the order of those fields by holding down the mouse, and you can move one field above the other one as well. Once you're done with any of the design changes, click on close, and it's going to save the structure. Now let's learn how to create a form. Go under the Create tab, or you can use, and I'd recommend that you utilize the Form Wizard. Basically, they'll tell the system which table you want to use. Pick what fields you want to include in that form. So here we are just picking the fields that we want. You can pick them one at a time, or you can simply add all the fields by clicking on this double arrow icon, and then click on Next, then click on Next, and then you give it a name. Click on Finish. So notice it's displaying the first record that we had entered already in our table. The form here serves to display information that is already stored in the tables, or to enter new records and add new customers here. So if I click here, add a new blank record, we leave the customer ID alone here, and we just fill in the information. Now to modify this form, click here under View and then choose Layout View. Just simply resize this stuff. The other method is by clicking here on View. So if we click on Design View, here is where you can change in a more precise way the design of this. Then once you're all set, close this, save the changes to it, and then if we go back to our form, notice first name here, it's in bold and such. Now let's create a quick query here. So if we go here to our table and we click on Create, go here under the Query Wizard, and you are saying list all the customers from that table, or list only the customers from a specific zip code, or a specific city, or a specific state. So here, let's say we want the first name, last name, and then the street address and the city and a zip code. Click on Next, click on Next, click on Finish, and notice we got only what we requested. The data is still stored in the table. The query just stores the parameters of what our criteria is. So to run this query, all you have to do is you double click here on the query, and if we were to go and change data for a specific customer, let's say we had a fourth customer here using the form. Now if I go and run this query, notice I have customer 4 listed here. To create a report, go under the Create tab, and then you want to go under Reports, and my suggestion would be the Report Wizard. So here you're picking what table you want to pull the report from. Notice that you can pull a report from queries as well. And then we say, I want the customer ID, let's say, the first name, last name, and the street address. And then we click on Next. Next, and then we can choose how to sort those customers. Click on Next, click on Finish, and we have the report called Customer Information. You can adjust the design of this by going to the Layout view and then resize those fields. Or the other method is by going here under View and then go under Design View. Now we are going to learn how to create additional tables in our Microsoft Access database. Typically, any database out there will have more than one table. For this tutorial, you should have access to a link to download the working files. The working file is a zip file here. You need to double click on it. After you have downloaded it, click on Extract All. Take note where it's going to extract this stuff. Click on Extract here, and then you'll see 3 files in there. So we'll utilize those 3 files to build an Access database, or to basically build 3 additional tables by importing the data from those files. If we had to enter the data manually, it would take us a very long time. We're going to build 3 tables. One of them is going to be based on customers, like the contact information for our customers. The next one is listing the contracts for those customers and the invoices. You can import the data into an existing table in Microsoft Access as long as the fields, these columns, and also the data type matches from the external file with your current design in Microsoft Access. In our case, we are not going to use the existing table, so we're going to create a new table by importing the data from an external data file. We go here under external data, and then since we know that our data file was an Excel file, we can go here under Excel, and then we go and locate that file that we extracted earlier from the working files. Go here under Browse, go under the working files, and notice we have here customer list. Click on Open, and then here we want to import the source data into a new table in our current database. If we wanted to add just the data, then we'll choose the append option here to just simply add it to the existing table. Click OK here, then we click on Next, and then this is where a lot of users get lost. So we want to choose here the first row contains the headings, so that is. Then we click on Next. You can now specify about each item that you're imported. Select the fields below. Now typically in a database, for example for the customer ID, we don't want to allow duplicates. Now the data type here, it says that it's going to be short text. Then we click on Next. I'll use my own key because I already have the customer ID here. However, keep in mind, it cannot have two records with the same customer ID. So you need to be sure that the data that you're bringing in from an external system to create this new database, it actually does not have any duplicates in it. Then we click on Next here, click on Finish. And now you have another table here, and if you double click on it, you have all of those customers. Let's create another table of contacts. Again, we go here under external data, we go under Excel, and then we choose the file that we want to import. We're actually going to get the contact list, and then we click OK. Go Next here. The first row has the actual information. Next. Then we click on Next. Then you want to make sure that you're choosing your own primary key and you're making the contract number as the primary key for here. Then we click on Next, and then we just say this is going to be called the contacts table. Click on Finish, click on Close. We'll have contracts and customers. So we want to create a table called Invoices, and we want to import the data from a text file. So we click on Next here, then click OK, and then go Next again. So we choose comma. First row contains the field names. Click on Next. And the invoice number is going to be the primary key. Next. Notice one key aspect here. If we go to customers, we have here customer ID. This will be our primary key for this table. So even if we went over here under design view, notice customer ID has this golden key here. So that's our unique identifier for this table. So if we go, for example, to contracts, notice that contract number is the unique identifier for this table. This table also has another field called customer ID. And the customer ID here, we saw it that it was the primary key for the customers table that we saw earlier. It was on this one. What that means is that for the table contracts, the primary key is contract number. That's the main differentiator. And now customer ID is what's called a foreign key. Basically, it will give us the option to link customer ID from this table to the customer's table with customer ID field. So in a relational database, the tables are linked together using primary and foreign keys. The concept to remember is when you're designing this, you need to design also for foreign keys, the common field that will connect one table to the other. So primary keys and foreign keys play an important role when you're designing the database because they'll need to be linked together. At this point, we have three tables. We need to go here under Table Tools. So we go here under Relations, and then we choose to add the Customers table. We choose to add the Contracts table, and then the Invoices table, and then close this. To link those tables together, notice we have here customer ID from the customers table, And we have the foreign key here under contracts for the contracts table. Click on customer ID from the main table and you drag it and you hold the mouse directly on customer ID on the contracts table here. It's going to be a relationship of one-to-many. What that means is that you can have one customer with multiple contracts, and that's hopefully what you want. If you have a small business, you want multiple contracts from the same customer. Click on Create and notice that you have a line between the two. The contracts primary key here could link with the foreign key from the invoices table. So we want to say from invoices here, we want to drag this to the foreign key from the invoices table. Again, the same idea. Contract number to contract number. If for some reason you had it improperly matched there, you can right click and then you can choose either edit relationship or simply delete. And then if you want to delete it, you say yes, and then you can redo it again. Once you're all set with this, click on close. Then we click here on close, save the relationship here, we say yes. And now we can actually create queries, we can create reports, we can create forms to pull data from multiple tables. Now we have linked those tables together and we have defined the relationships to basically create a form. To create a compound form, go under Create here, go under Form Wizard, choose Customers. Let's say I want everything from my customers table, and then I want also data from our contracts table. I want the contract number, the contract amount, and then the signing date, and then the type as well. Click on Next. We want to organize it by customer, and then click on Next. We click on Next again, give it a name. So we have the customer on the top, but then right below this customer, we also have the orders or the contracts. You could go and add new contract. So if you click here on customer, on the customer area, now we can go from one customer to the next and so on. If we want to go from one order to the other and add new orders, you have also those controls for this subform. So we have the data from two tables being displayed at the same time. And you can create new records as well if you need it by using this button right here. To create queries from multiple tables, we need to first make sure that the tables have been linked via these relationships here. So you can check that from the database tools and then relationships, and you should see these links. Go here under Create, Query Wizard, and then click on OK. And then we are going to go first to Customers. We're going to pick Customer ID, first name, last name, street address, city, zips. And then we go to the next table, Contracts, pick up the contract number, the amount, date, and type. Click on Next, click on Next again, and then here we could have some kind of meaningful name, and then Finish. Notice that we have the list with the data that we requested, customer, first name, last name, and such, and the data has been pulled from both tables. A more effective way to utilize queries and design queries is to use a query design. Click here on Query Design icon. You pick the tables that you want to work with initially, and then click on OK. And you pick specific fields from each table, and you're creating a new query. So for example, we want here first name, last name, invoice number, the contract number, and I'm double clicking at this point, the item and the amount. Now you can run this and see what it looks like. If we want to tweak this query again, we go under Design Mode and go into Design View and then tweak this again. So if we wanted, for example, first name to be first, simply drag this to the left. And once we move the fields the way we want or customize this view the way we want, then we can run this again. And now let's say that we wanted to see, for example, only the invoices that have not been paid. If we go under the invoices table, this is a yes or no field. To enter a criteria, we go here under the design view. Under invoices paid, notice there is an option for criteria. We want to display only the invoices that have not been paid. So we simply have to put no in there. And now click somewhere else outside of this area and then run this query. Now notice it's displaying only those that have not been paid. If we wanted to display that with the wording no next to it, just to be sure, make sure that it has the check mark right here. Now if we go and run it again, notice it says invoice paid no. Now you can have multiple criteria as well. If we run this query right now, notice that there are invoices ranging from $1,000 to more than $30,000. So let's say we want to see only the invoices that have not been paid of greater than $10,000. So to insert that criteria, we go back to the query design here, and then under the amount, we say greater than equal 10,000. And then click anywhere outside of this field and then run this. We run this, and now notice we have all these invoices displayed. We could sort this, and we can go back here to the design view again and customize this further. So under the sorting criteria, we say we want to sort this in descending order. Click on run again, and now notice the $105,000 invoice comes first, and then the rest are following that. Then if we go back to the design view, under city, for example, if I wanted to add an additional field and I want to insert it right there, just simply drag it in there. Right now I don't have any criteria by city, and if I run it, notice it's just going to display the city. But let's say that I want the city Lansing or Holland. So I want to display those two cities. Go back to the design view, enter two criteria, Lansing or Holland, either one of them, and then run them. It is displaying only the city Lansing or Holland, but then notice that the criteria is not quite what we were expecting earlier. Notice that we have 2,500, so it's no longer just 10,000 or more. The reason for that is because we have here in our criteria stating that the criteria could be Lansing greater than 10,000, an invoice is not paid, or anything from the city called Holland. So we either have to move this up here or utilize the criteria either or that we were using earlier. But then keep in mind that it's not going to apply. So we have to put them like this with the or here, and then the additional two criteria. Then we run it, and notice these are the only clients that have not paid their invoices yet with the greater than 10,000 balance, and only Lansing or Holland just for those two cities. So to create a report, you can go here under create and to use the report wizard, and then we are going to pick some fields here from the customers table. We're going to add customer ID, first name, last name, telephone number, and the email address. Then we can pick from the contracts table. And now let's say we want the contract amount and then the contract type. Then we click on next. So in this case, if you have a customer that has multiple contracts, you want all those contracts for that customer grouped together. So you have customer up here, and then the contracts will be listed right below it. Then we click here on next. So then we click on next. And then how do you want to sort those? And then the report summary options, and here let's say you want to see what the average is or what the sum of all the contracts was and all that type of stuff. Then we click on next, next again, then click on finish. So this is kind of a preview. Here to customize this further, we go under view, go under layout view, and we can adjust the layout of this a little bit. And then we can resize this field, then also resize other objects that you'd like here. Remember, you can also apply themes for this. Also remember that you can apply here the formatting. So let's say I wanted the formatting to be something like the previous cells here to remove this border. And notice you can go under format, take the format painter, apply it to another field, close this and save the changes. Now if I open this up, this is what it will look like. If I go to the print preview, this is what it will look like again for the print preview. Now, if you wanted to go into more detail for tweaking the formatting of this, you can use the design view. As you're working with the reports, sometimes you might want to add a new field. So to add the field, you could either go here on Layout View and then under this area right here add an existing field. You could do it from here and you could choose to add. So right now it's showing us the fields from the customer table. However, we could choose all tables and we want it under the contract table and we want it, let's say, the contract number, and place it basically wherever you need it. Adjust the size of it accordingly how you want it. The other way to display this field in there is by using the design view. Go under View, Design View, go here under Add Existing Fields, and I could add the field the same way that I showed a moment ago and drag contract number over here. And probably we don't need the number to be that long. Close it and run it. I should have the contract number at the end of each. So in our case, we'll want to create a query where the user will actually have to input a specific date. So we'll go here under Create, go under Queries, Query Wizard, Simple Query Wizard, OK, and then we'll go under Contracts and we'll put the number, ID, amount, date, and the type. Click on Next, Next, and initially we are not inserting any criteria yet. We give it a name and then Finish. And the query is listed down here. Now we are going to go and change the design of this query where the user will be prompted to enter, let's say, the date. Open this query first and then go under the Home tab and then go under View and go into Design View. Now notice there's an option here for criteria. So let's say we want the signing date. If you're going to use user input, you need to put it in brackets. So we're going to close it so we save these changes. Now we're going to run this. So the user needs to just type 3/1/2010 and then hit OK. And notice there are two records with this from that table. From here you can actually create a report. So reports usually run from data based on the tables, or you can run reports from queries. So let's go under Create tab to create the report. Click on the Report Wizard, and then we are going to select the query here, Contracts by Date. Pick all the fields that you want. Click on Next, Next, and then click on Next again, and then give it a name, Contracts by Date in our case. Click on Finish. Notice it's prompting us for the date. It should give us only those two records that match that criteria to include the range. So we can accomplish this by doing the following. So we enter the range, the starting range here. It has to be in brackets. You can have those words be whatever you want them to be. You put also the end range in brackets as well. And you use the word "and" in capital letters. Now here we are saying we want anything greater or equal to the start date and anything less or equal to the end date. Then we save this by clicking on the Save button here on the top. We'll close the query and then run it again. Now it says enter the start date. We enter also the end date, and notice the system displays the data that falls within those parameters. So let's see first from a table. We click here on the contracts table, which we right click on it, and there's this option for export, and you can choose to export it in any of those formats. You could also go under external data here and choose to export from up here into Excel. So right click, export, Excel, click OK, close, Now that data should be in Excel. If I go here to my file manager, notice I have a file here called contracts. I open this file and now I can work with this any way that I prefer. The process is exactly the same for exporting the data from a query or from a report.